There is a moment every woman faces, a moment she never forgets. It's the moment she finally realizes your uniqueness isn't a flaw. It's the very thing that exposes someone's insecurity. And the moment you truly understand that, everything about the way you show up in relationships changes. Most people spend years shrinking themselves, sanding down their edges, trying to fit into a shape that feels acceptable because somewhere along the line, they were taught that standing out is dangerous. They were taught that being different makes you harder to love, harder to choose, harder to commit to. But the truth is the opposite. Your uniqueness only becomes a problem when it reveals the places where someone else refuses to grow. Think about it. Your confidence isn't intimidating to a secure man. It's intimidating to an insecure one. Your ambition doesn't scare someone who believes in his own path. It scares someone who's lost in his. Your emotional depth doesn't overwhelm a person who has the courage to feel. It overwhelms someone who's terrified of being seen. Your standards don't drive away a man who's ready for love. They drive away the ones who are only ready for convenience. So when someone pulls back, withdraws, or suddenly becomes unsure of what he wants the moment you start showing him your true self, it's not because you're too much. It's because your uniqueness has placed a mirror in front of him, and he doesn't like what he sees in his reflection. Your kindness highlights his lack of effort. Your loyalty exposes his inconsistency. Your clarity reveals his confusion. Your growth forces him to confront his stagnation. And most people don't run from you. They run from the version of themselves they're confronted with when they're around you. That's the part nobody ever tells you. They make you believe you're the reason someone backed away, when in reality, your presence simply amplified the insecurities he worked so hard to hide. You need to understand that uniqueness takes courage. It takes courage to walk into a room and not dilute yourself so someone else can feel taller. It takes courage to speak your truth even when your voice shakes. It takes courage to want more, expect more, and ask for more in a world where many have settled for less. It takes courage to say, this is who I am, and allow the wrong people to fall away because they were only ever held in place by the version of you that wasn't living fully. The way you love, the way you think, the way you dream, the way you stand back up after every fall. These things don't make you difficult. They make you rare. And rare things don't appeal to everyone. Rare things aren't understood by everyone. Rare things don't fit into the hands of people who haven't learned how to hold something valuable. But the rarity is what gives them value. You are not meant to be understood by every person you meet. You are meant to resonate deeply with the few who recognize your worth. And sometimes, yes, your uniqueness will terrify him, not because it's wrong or flawed, but because it disrupts the comfort of his excuses. It exposes the truth he hoped you'd never notice, that he's not willing to rise to the level of the woman you're becoming. But his fear doesn't get to decide your identity. His insecurity doesn't get to mute your brilliance. His limits don't get to shrink your potential. Your uniqueness isn't what loses you the wrong person. Your uniqueness is what protects you from him. Because anyone who is scared of your light was never meant to walk with you into a future that requires it. The moment you stop shrinking yourself is the moment he realizes you can no longer be controlled. And this single shift changes the entire dynamic between you and anyone who ever depended on your doubt to feel secure. For so long, you may have softened your voice so his ego wouldn't crack. You may have lowered your standards so he wouldn't feel pressured to rise. You may have apologized for things that didn't require apologies, just to avoid conflict or rejection. You may have pretended to be okay with less because somewhere deep inside you feared that asking for more would lead him to walk away. And in that quiet fear, you gave him power. Power he didn't earn, power he didn't deserve, and power he only kept because you didn't yet see your own. But then something subtle but powerful happens. Growth, awareness, self-respect. Suddenly you begin to see the patterns you once looked away from. You hear the silence between his words. You notice the gaps between what he promises and what he delivers. And slowly you stop shrinking. You stop pretending you're satisfied with crumbs. You stop making excuses for behavior that would break your heart if you watched another woman endure it. And that's the moment everything changes. Not because you confronted him, not because you fought, but because you simply outgrew the role he expected you to play. When a woman stops shrinking, her energy shifts, her boundaries sharpen. The way she walks, speaks, chooses, and responds becomes aligned with her worth instead of her wounds. She no longer laughs at jokes that undermine her. She no longer stays quiet to keep the peace. She no longer tolerates inconsistency wrapped in charm. She doesn't beg for clarity, attention, effort, or honesty because she knows that anything she has to beg for becomes a prison for her soul. And with that clarity, she becomes someone a man can no longer manipulate with confusion or fear. A woman who stands tall can no longer be controlled by someone who relies on her insecurity. A woman who knows her value can no longer be kept small by someone who needs her to question herself. A woman who has learned that love is not earned through self-abandonment cannot be held by someone who benefits from her forgetting who she is. And that is what terrifies him, not your strength, but the loss of his ability to shape your perception of yourself. Because the moment you stop shrinking is also the moment he loses the version of you that was easy, the version that accepted last-minute plans, the version that forgave without seeing change, the version that tolerated being half-chosen, the version that mistook potential for effort, the version that waited for him to become the man he kept promising he would be someday. When you stop shrinking, that version of you no longer exists, and without that version, he no longer knows how to keep you where he wants you. He realizes he can't control a woman who isn't afraid of losing him. He can't manipulate a woman whose needs no longer scare her. He can't keep a woman who refuses to keep herself small to protect him from the discomfort of growth. And that's when you see the truth. The moment he loses control is the moment you gain yourself. The moment you stop shrinking to fit his comfort is the moment you step into the fullness of who you were always meant to be. You don't become hard. You become clear. You don't become cold. You become conscious. You don't become unloving. You become unwilling to betray yourself for love. And that is power. Real, undeniable, unshakable power. The kind of power no one can take from you once you've tasted the freedom of standing in your truth. Real attraction comes from emotional courage, not perfection. And this is something many people never understand because they spend their lives trying to impress instead of trying to connect. We live in a world that teaches you to polish your surface, hide your flaws, and present a version of yourself that looks effortless. You are told to be confident, but not too emotional. To be strong, but not too opinionated. To be desirable, but not too expressive. And in that pressure to appear perfect, you lose the very thing that makes someone fall in love with you, your humanity. Emotional courage is the willingness to show up as who you really are, not who you think someone wants you to be. It's allowing yourself to say, this matters to me, even if it might not matter to him. It's expressing your needs instead of suppressing them in fear of pushing him away. It's being honest about what you feel, what you dream of, and what scares you. It's saying the truth even when your voice trembles. Perfection hides, courage reveals, and love can only grow in what is revealed. When you try to be perfect, you create distance. You hide your hurt instead of talking about it. You downplay your standards so you don't seem demanding. You pretend you're unaffected when inside you're aching. This doesn't create attraction, it creates performance. And performance can only be maintained for so long before it becomes exhausting. Eventually, the real you will want to come out. The real you will want to breathe. The real you will want connection, not applause. And the man who is attracted to the performance will never have the capacity to love the person underneath it. But emotional courage, that does something entirely different. It builds intimacy. It creates trust. It shows someone that you're not playing games, not wearing masks, not manipulating, not pretending. It shows that you have depth, that you can communicate, that you have self-awareness, that you're willing to meet love with sincerity instead of fear. A man who is ready for something real is drawn to that. He's drawn to a woman who can speak from her heart instead of hiding behind silence. He's drawn to someone who can set boundaries instead of tolerating disrespect. He's drawn to someone who chooses honesty over approval. Emotional courage also means you're not afraid of losing someone who cannot meet you at the level of truth you're willing to offer. It means you would rather be alone than half loved. It means you will walk away from someone who wants your body but not your mind, who wants your presence but not your emotions, who wants your admiration but not your honesty. This kind of strength is magnetic because it signals that your love is valuable, not something that can be taken lightly or given cheaply. And here's the part people often overlook. Emotional courage exposes emotional cowardice. When you communicate clearly, you reveal who can handle clarity. When you express your feelings, you reveal who can respond with maturity. When you are transparent, you reveal who hides behind avoidance. When you're brave enough to show your heart, you reveal who only feels safe around emotional silence. This is why your presence becomes intimidating to someone who is not ready for real intimacy, because your courage highlights their fear. The right man is attracted to emotional courage because he understands that real connection requires vulnerability, not perfection. He knows that a relationship is built through genuine conversations, shared truths, and emotional presence. He knows that courage is the foundation of love, because love itself is a risk to feel, a risk to trust, a risk to open up. And no matter how beautiful, talented, or impressive you are, none of that creates real attraction if you're emotionally unavailable. Perfection might catch his eye, but courage captures his soul. Perfection impresses him, but courage connects him. Perfection makes him look, but courage makes him stay. When a woman becomes self-directed, the wrong man becomes intimidated. But the right man becomes inspired, and this difference reveals more about someone's character than any words he could ever say. Being self-directed means you're no longer waiting for someone to choose you before you choose yourself. You're no longer living your life based on what someone else prefers, expects, or feels comfortable with. Instead, you're driven by your own values, your own goals, your own emotional standards, and your own inner compass. It's a shift from what do I need to be for him to who do I want to be for myself. And that single shift divides the men who only want influence from those who genuinely want partnership. The wrong man thrives when you're unsure of yourself. He feels safer when you second guess your decisions, your dreams, your identity, because as long as you are uncertain, he gets to position himself as the center of your world, the one who gets to validate you, define you, or guide you. Your dependence makes him feel needed, and your hesitation makes him feel powerful. But the moment you become self-directed, that illusion collapses. The pedestal he stood on disappears because you no longer look up at him for direction. You look inward. And that is where his intimidation comes from. When you start trusting your own voice, his ability to shape your choices decreases. When you follow your path instead of orbiting around his, he loses the sense of control he quietly relied on. When you start wanting things for yourself, real things, big things, meaningful things, he sees that he can't distract you with half efforts or emotional crumbs anymore. You're no longer impressed by potential or talk. You're looking for alignment, consistency, and character. And if he can't offer that, he knows you won't stay long. This is why self-direction threatens the wrong man. It forces him to confront the fact that he cannot lead a woman who leads herself. A woman who knows who she is no longer fits inside the small emotional spaces insecure men try to keep her in. She doesn't shrink to avoid conflict. She doesn't suppress her goals to preserve peace. She doesn't dim her ambition so he can shine brighter. She doesn't make herself small to protect his comfort. She simply decides, I am responsible for my life. And that choice exposes who wants to grow with her and who wants to hold her back. But the right man, he responds completely differently. The right man isn't afraid of a self-directed woman. He's drawn to her. Her drive doesn't threaten him. It energizes him. Her independence doesn't make him insecure. It makes him proud. Her clarity doesn't intimidate him. It helps him rise to his own potential, because a good man doesn't want a follower. He wants a partner. He doesn't want someone who needs him to survive. He wants someone who chooses him freely while still choosing herself. The right man sees your self-direction not as competition, but as compatibility. He recognizes that your strength doesn't diminish his. It complements it. He knows that your ambition doesn't overshadow his, but expands the life you can build together. He values your decisions, respects your voice, and supports your growth, not because he's trying to keep you, but because he genuinely believes you deserve to become the fullest version of yourself. And here's the beautiful truth. Your self-direction is the filter. You don't have to test men or analyze them endlessly. You simply live your life with purpose and clarity, and watch who gravitates toward your growth and who distances themselves from it. The wrong man will interpret your independence as rejection. The right man will interpret as alignment. The wrong man will feel threatened by your power. The right man will admire it. The wrong man will shrink away from your evolution. The right man will evolve with you. A woman who leads herself naturally attracts a man who is capable of leading with her, not above her, not behind her, but beside her. And that is the difference between fear and admiration, control and partnership, limitation and expansion. A self-directed woman doesn't lose the right man by being herself. She loses the wrong one. And that is a victory, not a loss. Your boundaries are not barriers. They are the filter that separates those who deserve you from those who don't. And this truth becomes clearer the moment you stop apologizing for having them. For far too long, many women have been conditioned to believe that setting boundaries makes them difficult, too demanding, or hard to love. You are taught that saying no means you're unkind, that expressing your needs means you're burdensome, and that expecting respect makes you unreasonable. So you learn to overextend, overgive, and overlook. You learn to sacrifice your comfort to maintain connection. You learn to silence yourself just to keep the peace. But boundaries aren't walls, they are doors. They determine who gets access and who doesn't. And without them, you end up allowing people into your life who were never meant to stay. A boundary is not a punishment, it's a definition. It defines what you allow, what you tolerate, and what you refuse to accept. It defines the way you expect to be treated. It defines the kind of energy you permit in your space. And most importantly, it defines the standard of love you have for yourself. When a woman has boundaries, she's not being too much. She's being clear. She's being intentional. She's being protective of her peace, her heart, and her future. And that clarity doesn't push away the right people. It reveals the ones who are only comfortable with the version of you that didn't know how to protect herself. The wrong man will always struggle with your boundaries because they take away his ability to benefit from your lack of them. When you set a boundary, you stop giving him unlimited access. You stop allowing excuses to replace effort. You stop accepting inconsistencies disguised as charm. You stop tolerating behavior that drains you emotionally. Your boundary forces him to either step up or step out. And if he was only there because you made things easy, his reaction will show you everything you need to know. Boundaries expose intentions. They show who respects you and who only respects what he can get from you. They show who values your time and who wastes it. They show who wants to build with you and who wants to use you. And that's why the wrong man sees your boundaries as barriers, because they block the access he once had to your energy, your kindness, your forgiveness, and your willingness to overgive. He can no longer rely on your silence. He can no longer assume you'll stay. He can no longer manipulate your empathy. Your boundary becomes the moment he realizes that you're not afraid to lose him, and that loss of control terrifies him. But the right man views your boundaries completely differently. A mature, emotionally stable, secure man sees your boundaries as a sign of emotional health. He respects them because he respects you. He doesn't see your limits as rejection, he sees them as direction. They show him how to love you better, how to communicate with you more clearly, how to meet you where you are, and how to grow with you in a way that feels safe and respectful for both of you. The right man appreciates a woman who knows what she wants because he's not afraid of offering what she deserves. Boundaries don't scare the right man, they guide him. He doesn't feel controlled or restricted. He feels trusted. He feels invited into a relationship with structure, with depth, with mutual respect. He understands that a woman who values herself enough to create boundaries will also value the relationship enough to nurture it with honesty and care. And that's the kind of woman a real man wants, not one who is endlessly available, but one who knows her value and protects it. Here's the truth. Many people never learn. Boundaries don't keep love out. They keep chaos out. They don't repel connection. They refine it. They don't isolate you. They elevate you. A woman without boundaries leaves everything open. A woman with boundaries protects everything sacred. And in that protection, she creates space for the right person to show up, stay, and grow beside her. Someone who doesn't fear her standards, but honors them. Your boundaries aren't what lose you the wrong man. Your lack of them is what keeps him in your life longer than he deserves. Because the moment you draw a line, you don't push him away. You discover who truly belongs on your side of it. The moment he realized you're unstoppable wasn't about him. It was about you stepping fully into your power, your truth, and your worth. It wasn't the size of your accomplishments or the brilliance of your mind that shook him. It was the courage with which you claimed yourself, the clarity with which you defined your life, and the refusal to settle for anything less than what you deserve. Every boundary you set, every standard you uphold, every step you take toward your growth is a signal that you are not here to be controlled, diminished, or silenced. And here's the beautiful truth. The right people are drawn to that energy. They aren't intimidated. They are inspired. They rise to meet you. They respect your journey, and they honor your independence. The wrong people will pull away, falter, or disappear. And that's not a loss. It's protection. Your uniqueness, your self-direction, your emotional courage, and your boundaries serve as the filter that ensures only those who are ready to walk beside you in authenticity will remain. When you look back on the moment he realized you were unstoppable, don't see it as a moment of rejection or fear. See it as a moment of revelation for both of you. For him, it revealed his limitations. For you, it revealed your freedom, your strength, and your undeniable worth. You are unstoppable because you chose yourself, because you refuse to shrink, and because you refuse to dim your light for anyone. Stand in that truth, embrace it fully, and let it guide every choice, every relationship, and every step forward. You are rare, you are powerful, you are unstoppable, and anyone who cannot see that was never meant to stand beside you anyway.